You are their creator. You giveth them life and spirit.
Genetic engineering is the process of cutting and altering genes in an organism's DNA and transferring them in order to bring out favorable changes. The purpose of this science is to make an organism perform certain functions that it usually cannot perform. Genetic engineering is
What if we could improve the human gene pool? Create children that are free of the genes that cause inherited diseases like Huntington's or certain kinds of cancer by modifying the DNA in eggs, sperm, or embryos? Well, it's possible. The media have been talking about it lately in terms of genetically modified humans or designer babies. But to scientists, it's known as germline engineering, referring to the germ cells, or sperm and egg cells, that come together to create an embryo. Putting an end to heritable disease sounds like a crowd-pleasing idea, right? But germline engineering is pretty controversial. In fact, about 40 countries either discourage or outright ban the practice, and yet researchers continue to inch closer to performing germline engineering experiments on humans. This has prompted some geneticists in the new issue of the journal Nature to call for a moratorium on germline engineering. And in this week's journal Science, other researchers voiced their concerns too, saying that more people, including the general public, have to get involved in discussion before we start editing people's sperm and egg cells. So, how does germline engineering work, and what
battle children with false expectations. The parents pick a kid to be smart, the kid doesn't succeed, now they're mad because they spent a lot of money to do this, they don't get what they want. We need more oversight of this industry, and I think this is going to turn out to be one of the biggest issues in the next 10, 15 years.
Genetic alteration could lead to an impression that people are products meant to be designed, perfected, and controlled. Parents would choose to design their child to be talented or more skilled in a particular area, like intelligence, instead of accepting them for who they are. This could lead to a deterioration in the quality of parenting if the child isn't interested.
Your child doesn't need any additional burdens. And keep in mind, this child is still you. Simply the best of you.
Who's to say what's the better trait? Is it better to be redheaded than it is to be brown-haired? Is it better to have freckles or not? Those sorts of things I think are very subjective and in some ways driven by our culture.
If everyone was engineered, the human race would become more and more uniform. During World War II, Hitler attempted to remove certain traits from the gene pool to create what he thought would be a supreme race. Most would agree that this was unethical, but would gene selection through science make it suddenly acceptable? Who's to say?
Everyone warns about a new species set loose in the world.
We've documented the entire human genome, but that doesn't mean we know everything about it. Some genes are responsible for multiple traits. What if you select a gene without knowing the consequences? In mice, for example, it's possible to increase memory by altering a gene that also makes them more sensitive to pain. It's difficult to tell what all the side effects are without having done extensive research that can take decades and cost millions.
Here is sizable. $120 billion to be exact. And I can't afford for them to reconsider.
What you tell them is your business, Doctor.
Cost to consumers would also play a factor in the ethics of genetic engineering. Since these treatments are expensive, only the wealthy would be able to afford them. The rich could afford to make their children more intelligent or more athletic, while the poor are left with whatever nature gives them. This would cause socioeconomic differences that would lead to separate genetic classes. However, if handled incorrectly, genetic engineering could cause discrimination, super diseases, and possibly new species of humans. Genetic engineering is going to be a huge issue in the next 10 to 15 years,